The real reason Inger Stevens passed away. Sadly, she only was 35. One of the most riveting and radiant of blondes in late 1950s and 60s Hollywood, Stockholm-born Inger Stevens seemed to have the whole world in her corner. Bright and breathtaking, she possessed the cool, classic glamour of a Grace Kelly on screen, yet came off more approachable and inviting. Her warm smile and honey-glazed vocal tones could melt an iceberg. She was a paradoxical beauty, a study in contrasts, tender yet elusive, welcoming yet guarded, stunningly attractive yet modest, and this kept audiences in. On camera, Inger evoked instant sympathy. She couldn't have played the bad girl if she tried. She was too sincere and nurturing. Her early ingenues were vulnerable, troubled little butterflies often in peril and in need of protection from the big, bad, ugly world. Her later leading ladies revealed a mature, worldly wise resourcefulness that arose from lessons learned in the school of hard knocks. As gorgeous as Inger was, talent was her first and foremost saleable item, and she pursued with fierce determination a meaningful career not based on looks alone. Like the lovely Natalie Wood, Inger grew more beautiful and sensual with age. The fresh-faced prettiness that initially held viewers spellbound evolved into a full-grown beauty accented by a sexy, irresistible smolder. Thanks to a popular mid-1960s TV sitcom, the actress quickly became a household name. As a result, Inger's career seemed to be headed for new heights, and in her last film she displayed touches of Oscar-worthiness in her fragile, highly moving. By April of 1970, Inger had added producer Aaron Spelling to her list of admirers. After co-starring her in the dramatic TV movie Run Simon, Run opposite Burt Reynolds, with whom she was sharing an off-screen relationship, Spelling cast the actress without pause for his newly dramatic TV series Zig Zag, set to air that fall. Indeed, 35-year-old Inger Stevens seemed to be on top of her game. Yet she would become a tragic and immensely regrettable Hollywood statistic, overcome by a deep-rooted personal unhappiness hidden by a sunny disposition and megawatt smile. A curious fascination centered on her after her death, as it became clear the real Inger was a chaotic contrast to the halcyon beauties she tended to portray on camera. Actually, she was a mystery. After her untimely death, the public suddenly wanted to know all about this stranger Inger Stevens, or at least to make sense of her life. The source of Inger's unhappiness can be traced back to her troubled childhood. The product of a broken home, she was born Inger Stensland in Stockholm, on October 18, 1934, named in honor of Ingebjorg, a Norse princess. Inger was the daughter Per Gustav, a high school teacher, and Lisbeth Pothoff Stensland, who were married 6 months before Inger's birth. Brothers Ola, aka Karl, and Peter were born 2 and 4 years later, respectively. She was a shy, introverted girl who was first drawn to acting after witnessing the magic of her father's performances in local amateur theater shows. Within 2 years, however, her mother had abandoned the family for another man. Lisbeth eventually married the man and moved back to Stockholm, taking youngest son Peter with her. A confused and distraught Inger and Ola remained with their stern, emotionally distant father. When the outbreak of World War II prompted his move to the United States in late 1940, the children were left behind to fend for themselves, with only a family maid providing any sort of parenting. Eventually the 2 children moved in with a loving aunt, stage actress Karen Stensland Junker, and her family in Lidingö, near Stockholm. Officially divorced from his wife via mail years later, her father, Per Stensland, eventually summoned his 2 eldest in 1944, after taking an American bride and finding steady work as a teacher at Columbia University in New York City. Traveling alone on the freighter SS Margaret Johnson from Sweden to the United States, the children found that their father was not there to greet them when they docked in New Orleans. Too busy with his own work, he had a Salvation Army man accompany the anxious youngsters to New York, a young stranger in a strange land. the young girl felt painfully out of place at her school in New York. An excellent student nevertheless, she applied herself and quickly picked up the English language in order to appear less conspicuous. In 1948, a teaching position opened up for her father at Kansas State University that triggered a family move to Manhattan, Kansas. This only aggravated Inger's acute pangs of displacement. Unable to cope with her cold and strict father and stepmother, Inger's home life became unbearable and she ran away at age 15. She wound up in a Kansas City burlesque chorus line making $60 a week under an alias, Kay Palmer. Her father eventually discovered her there and brought his underage girl back home. Returning to school, Inger actively involved herself in plays and the Glee Club, the only creative outlets she was permitted to enjoy. After her 1952 graduation, she left home as quickly as she could pack her bags. Once gone, she never looked back. Maintaining very weak, unemotional ties with her entire family, Inger found menial jobs in town at first, including selling fabric at a department store and records at a music store. After moving briefly to Kansas City, she decided to return to New York in 1953, this time to actively pursue her dreams of acting. Outgrowing her plaintive teen awkwardness, Inger developed into a graceful and strikingly beautiful young woman, her fair and winsome Scandinavian features highlighted by a single left cheek dimple. As a result, she managed to secure some early work as a New York model. Quickly bored and disenchanted with what she called empty modeling assignments, Inger secured an assertive agent, Anthony Salio, for TV representation. He quickly Americanized her last name and, within a short time, helped Inger Stevens book her very first professional job, a Vel detergent commercial in November of 1954. She and another actress hopeful, Carol Baker, auditioned for and were accepted into Lee Strasberg's renowned actors studio. Members at the time included James Dean, Marlon Brando, Paul Newman, Robert Redford, and Jane Fonda. Inger's random dancing and singing lessons also paid off when she found supplementary income as a Latin Quarter nightclub chorine at gaining experience on the summer stock stage in such productions as Glad Tidings, The Women, Oh, Men, Oh, Women, and Picnic. Inger's first break on TV came when she was cast in a 1954 Studio One presentation of Sue Ellen, thanks to her resemblance to the leading lady. Instead of disguising her Scandinavian heritage, she began to embrace it after being cast in a small part on an episode of the Norwegian-American family series Mama. From there she appeared opposite the fast-rising Paul Newman in both Goodyear TV Playhouse and Armstrong Circle Theatre presentations. Making significant strides as a dramatic ingenue, she also proved right for lighter weight material on such sitcoms as Inger and her agent, Tony Salio, quickly became a romantic twosome, and the couple impulsively married in Connecticut on July 9, 1955. Soon, however, the young actress realized she had made a horrible mistake. Due to Tony's extreme jealousy and abusive tendencies, the marriage was practically over before it began, and the couple separated in January of 1956. Divorce would not become final until August of 1958. There was no community property to divide, but Tony profited greatly in the settlement, receiving 5% of her earnings for the next 7 following out-of-town tryouts. Inger took her first Broadway curtain call on February 22, 1956, as leading lady of the new 3-act comedy, Debut. The play received less than inspiring reviews, but Inger's performance was highly praised, save for New York Times critic Brooks Atkinson, who claimed she came off high-strung and aggressive. The show closed after only 5 performances. It was around this time that the young actress found a powerful friend in columnist Luella Parsons, who went on to help her through some personal and professional stumbles. Despite their separation, Tony Salio, perhaps in the hopes of getting her back, managed to help Inger secure a 3-month test option contract at 20th Century Fox. Although it proved a disappointment, Inger remembered with self-effacing amusement. My experience with Fox wasn't total loss. I took driving lessons at the studio's expense. There were close calls too when she tested for major parts in the Fox movies Oh, Men. Oh, Women. Fräulein, and The Last Wagon. Vying for the leading lady role in the Paramount feature The Tin Star, she lost out to another pretty blonde, Betsy. It was film producer Saul C. Siegel who came to Inger's rescue after discovering her in the minor role of a chambermaid in the Playhouse 90 presentation of Eloise, which starred Ethel Barrymore, Monty Woolley, Louis Jordan and Eloise creator Kay Thompson. Putting her under a personal Paramount 7 picture contract at the enviable rate of $600 per week, Siegel introduced the 22-year-old to the film world with the MGM family drama Man on Fire, 1957, and starring Bing Crosby in a rare dramatic role. Both second-billed Inger and third-billed Mary Fickett made inspiring movie debuts. It was an important assignment for Inger and she showed great promise in her very first picture. On only her second day of shooting, however, her life and career were briefly placed in jeopardy when she was suddenly rushed to the hospital. Stricken with an acute attack of appendicitis, the company had to shoot around her until she could return to the set. Inger fell into an affair with Crosby, who was 30 years her senior, during the film's shoot. Inger's second loan-out film was MGM's Cry Terror, written, produced and directed by Andrew L. Stone. A taut drama that takes place in New York City, but was shot primarily in Los Angeles. Inger was given the uncharacteristic opportunity to shine as electronics expert James Mason's picture-perfect wife and mother of their young daughter. Though the plot is hard to believe, Inger becomes the emotional catalyst for much of the film's tension and she nearly runs away with the picture. During the shooting of an underground subway chase scene involving Inger and Rod Steiger, which was actually shot in a railway tunnel in Hoboken, New Jersey, both actors and a number of the film's crew were overcome by carbon monoxide fumes triggered by a defective gasoline generator. Rushed to the hospital, a dangerously ill Inger had to be placed in an oxygen tent for 2 days before recovering. Inger's third film was for Paramount, her contract studio. The Epic War of 1812 costumer The Buccaneer, 1958, was a sprawling but static remake of Cecil B. DeMille's 1938 classic that earlier starred a dashing Frederick March as pirate Jean Lafitte and featured Anthony Quinn. In the meantime, nobody filled out period costumes better than the lovely Inger, who reprised the Margot Graham role of Annette, the Louisiana governor's frilly daughter and Lafitte's parasol-carrying Inger's latest affair, this time with the married Belafonte, ran its usual torrid course, but now it was all starting to catch up with her. What followed was a near-fatal suicide attempt from which she was not expected to recover. Inger had swallowed an overdose of pills shortly after New Year's Day in 1959, but by sheer luck she was found in time after friend David Tibet, a senior vice president at NBC, became concerned after the actress failed to show up at a dinner engagement and then could not be reached the entire next day. By this point it was clear her addiction to on-set affairs had become extremely destructive. Promiscuous relations with people who, in fact, care little or nothing for you are all too common among people like Inger, who suffered a lack of emotional nurturing from her parents in childhood. These affairs were especially dangerous because after the film wraps and the actors go their separate ways, Inger once again was faced with reliving all the painful feelings of the breakup of her family in childhood. It was as if the solution to her emotional problems was instead building to a deadly explosion of all the pain she had suffered as a child. She was, in effect, trying to put out the flames by dousing them. Following her recovery, the actress began an intense period of self-examination with a new drive. Refocusing intently on her career, she actively returned to TV. It became a highly productive period as she starred in what would become one of the Twilight Zone's more famous episodes. In 1960's The Hitchhiker, Inger plays a young motorist traveling cross-country, who is stalked and terrified by the same hitchhiker wherever she goes. Elsewhere on TV, Inger shared touching scenes with sensitive Hulk Dan Blocker on the first season of Bonanza, and went on to grace episodes of Route 66 and Zane Grey Theater, as well as a second Twilight. Another close call with death occurred in June of 1961 while on an extended European vacation. Following a visit to her Swedish homeland, Inger continued on with stops in Rome, Paris and Lisbon. While attempting to land in Lisbon, her plane bounced off the runway and skidded with its nose gear collapsing, sparking a fire that quickly spread to the passenger cabin. Inger was one of the last passengers to exit the plane before it exploded minutes later. Back on the comedic stage in a Chicago production of The Voice of the Turtle, Inger went on to replace Barbara Bel Geddes in the New York smash Mary, where she earned the best Broadway reviews of her career. Inger played no diva cards despite being the show's top draw. She was compassionate, thoughtful and highly giving to both cast and crew. TV audiences adored Inger and her popularity soared. Moreover, the blonde bouffant beauty became the pitchwoman for Clairol's hair products on the show. It was a joyous and productive time for her despite the hectic scheduling and admitted lack of privacy. Her film output, however, was a different matter. At odds with Paramount years back after she turned down the female lead in the 1960 film Key Witness, Inger bought out her contract in an expensive settlement agreement. She finally returned with Columbia's Formula Hospital drama The New Interns, 1964, after a 5-year big-screen absence. Earlier she had lost out to Marilyn Monroe for the lead in The Misfits and the coveted role of Holly Golightly in Breakfast at Tiffany's, which went to Audrey Hepburn and was a particular disappointment. In addition, she and the fugitive's David Jansen were recipients of the TV Guide popularity poll as the favorite male-female performer of the year. The sitcom completely relied upon the relaxed charm and chemistry of its two stars as the show's comedy approach was relatively tame. Expectations of romance between Katie and the congressman kept loyal viewers glued to the set. As a famous TV star, Inger was now in the position to raise awareness for her various humanitarian causes. She sponsored art exhibitions to benefit special needs children, did volunteer work for various health centers, and was the chairman of the California Council for Retarded Children, which hit particularly close to home. The actress's high-profile TV status had other perks too. Her long-dormant film career began to reverend up again. A string of movies came along within a 3-year stretch and, in an effort to break away from her wholesome image, she consciously sought out roles that would emphasize her maturing sensuality. One wishes that the actress had made more movies like 20th Century Fox's A Guide for the Married Man, 1967, the only comedy in her modest film repertoire. While a hidden sadness seemed to permeate so many of Inger's movie characters, it was a joyous change of pace to see the actress show off her flair for the fun, lighter side, unwisely turning down Jane Fonda's Oscar-nominated role in They Shoot Horses, Don't They? But wisely turning down the lead in Song of Norway, 1970, a movie musical mistake that eventually starred singer Florence Henderson. Inger began to entertain thoughts of broadening her horizons. With ideas of directing or perhaps screenwriting, she also wished to devote more of herself to outside interests, particularly her work with special needs children. On that same track, she went into a decorating and antique business venture with a friend and called the enterprise Stevens & Cardini, Interiors and Design, located in Hollywood on following her expeditionary work searching for a precious Ethiopian mask in the mini-movie adventure The Mask of Sheba, 1970, with Walter Pidgeon and Eric Braeden, Inger began filming a second TV movie, Run, Simon, Run, 1970, that starred Burt Reynolds as a formerly imprisoned Papago Indian. The tense tale has Inger's well-to-do social worker falling for Reynolds and aiding him in his valiant search. An ensuing whirlwind fling with the virile, handsome Reynolds occurred during filming and their affair would run hot and sadly, on the morning of April 30, 1970, Inger Stevens was discovered on the floor of her kitchen by her housekeeper. Pronounced dead at Hollywood Hospital, Inger's cause of death was listed as acute barbiturate intoxication. The year 2021 marks the 51st anniversary of Inger's death. Her contributions to Hollywood are so much more than the personal tragedy that befell her. A strong and consummate dramatic player as well as light comedienne, Inger Stevens deserves to be remembered in a better and more encouraging light. Rest in peace, Inger Stevens. Goodbye, legend. I legend.